Thank you for tuning in to the Voice of Adventure. Today we will continue to explore Vampire Trap. Last time, Vaughn got captured by Gamal. He tried to flee, but he was captured each time. Now, with no hope of escape, Vaughn is forced to follow Gamal's instruction, or be killed. Vaughn sat on his bed, struggling with his shackle. He pushed, pulled, and twisted the chain, attempting to break it, but it was no use. The chain was too thick to break. He lay back on his bed, scouring his brain for any way to free himself, but he found nothing. In this current situation, there was no escape. No chance for Vaughn to break the chain that was around him. He was truly trapped here. Vaughn opened the curtain and watched the sun slowly rise, illuminating the forest. He stood by the window watching the birds fly around, wishing he had that same freedom. Being able to go wherever he wanted, when he wanted. Not being restrained by shackles or responsibilities, but perfectly free. Oh, what Vaughn would give for that freedom right now. Hours passed and the castle remained quiet. Gamal was nowhere to be seen. Was this punishment for trying to escape a second time? Vaughn asked himself. Regardless, Vaughn's stomach groaned for food, and with nothing to eat, Vaughn had to sit and wait. A few more hours passed and Vaughn's stomach was getting violent. Pain shot through his body as his stomach was completely empty. He began thinking the worst as he laid in the mid-morning sun. He thought Gamal had forgotten about him, that this would be his final resting place, that he would die of starvation. But thankfully, Gamal opened the door, looking like he just woke up. He stepped into the room before jumping back in pain. "Close those curtains," he screamed. "Quick!" Vaughn jumped up and quickly closed the curtains, making the room dark again. Gamal's skin sizzled as he spoke. "We do not open the curtains in this castle. Never do it again." Vaughn nodded, not wanting to anger Gamal any further. Gamal knelt down and undid the shackle. "If you try to escape again, I will kill you," Gamal said, no quiver in his voice. Gamal walked out of the room, leaving Vaughn alone. Knowing there was no chance of escape, Vaughn quickly followed after Gamal, hoping there would be food wherever they were going. Gamal led them through a maze of hallways and down a few flights of stairs before ending up in the most luxurious dining room Vaughn had ever seen. A long wooden table that could comfortably seat 30 people sat in the middle of the room. Each chair looked like it was hand-carved by a master woodworker. The ornate curves and detailed designs of the chairs made them feel like they belonged in a museum. 3 large chandeliers hung from the ceiling, with crystals that shimmered in the candlelight. The table was set for 2. Plates, utensils, and food sat at the far end of the table. Gamal walked down and sat at the head of the table. He motioned for Vaughn to join him, as Vaughn had not moved from the doorway. Vaughn hesitantly walked down to the second place setting, expecting Gamal to deny him food. He thought that there would be some catch or punishment for trying to escape yesterday and burning him today. He slowly sat down and Gamal said nothing. Then, without hesitation, Vaughn grabbed his fork and scooped up some scrambled eggs. Hunger overwhelmed him, and he quickly started eating everything on his plate. He scarfed down the food, barely stopping to take a breath. With an empty plate, he was ready for seconds, so he grabbed more eggs and toast, devouring them as well. Gamal sat there, slowly eating the food on his plate, delicately pushing eggs onto his fork with his knife. He paid no mind to Vaughn's ravenous appetite. He just ate in silence. Once he finished the food on his plate, Gamal stood up and removed the plates. In a matter of moments, he quickly cleared the table, interrupting Vaughn's 3rd serving of breakfast. With the table clear, he came back in and said, "Follow me." He led Vaughn out of the dining room and back to the first room Vaughn woke up in. The dim light still made the room dark and mysterious, but Vaughn felt slightly at ease knowing they came for a story. The room hadn't changed, except 2 chairs were set up next to the fireplace this time. Gamal motioned for Vaughn to take a seat as he searched through the bookshelves. After a few minutes of silence, Gamal spoke. I am very disappointed with the events of yesterday. I thought we had come to an agreement, but you should know. I am giving you another chance, only because I don't want to have to look for another friend right now. But if you try anything again, I will not hesitate to end our relationship. Those last words chilled Vaughn to the bone. He knew that Gamal was capable of killing him, but hearing those words almost felt like Vaughn could see his own death. Vaughn stayed silent and only nodded. Here is a good one to start with. Gamal pulled a small paperback book off the shelf and sat in the empty chair. I remember my father reading this one to me every night, before he was taken away. It is called The Boy in the Ship. Without a second thought, Gamal jumped straight into the story. There once was a boy who lived by the sea. Every day he sat on a hill overlooking the port, watching ships come and go. He marveled at the size of them, counting the sails and comparing sizes. His desire was to sail one of them on the open seas. But he was too young, his parents would say. Still he watched the ships, knowing one day he would be the captain of a large vessel. One late summer day, his parents told him their assistance was requested at a nearby harbor. His parents were overjoyed with this chance, but the boy did not want them to leave. They insisted they had to go, so he pleaded and begged to go with them. But they again said he was too young. Leaving him with his grandmother, they set sail. The boy sat on his hill, waiting for their ship to return. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, but still their ship hadn't returned. Finally, after almost a year, their ship was back. The boy saw the flag and sails and knew it was their ship. He ran down to the docks, pushing past anyone who slowed him down. He found the ship and waited as the crew departed. One by one, they all got off, but his parents never showed. The captain disembarked and saw the boy. Knowing who he was, the captain walked up and said, I am sorry, kid. Pirates attacked, and your parents are gone. No, the boy screamed, tears streaming down his face. They wouldn't leave me like that. The boy ran from the docks, refusing to accept it. He ran without thinking and ended up back on his hill. He sat down watching the sun set over the harbor. Tears wet his shirt, as he didn't want to accept that his parents were gone. He sat there all night hoping that the next ship would bring them back. Before the sun rose, the captain came and sat next to the boy. He didn't speak, just sat there admiring the view. As they sat in silence, looking at the open sea, streaks of red and yellow appeared past the horizon. The captain spoke. Your parents were the bravest sailors I ever knew. Even when the pirates attacked, they protected the crew over themselves. With their dying breath, they asked me to teach you to sail. The boy sat up and looked at the captain shocked. He wiped the tears from his eyes. So come on, you have a lot to learn if you're going to be a captain one day. The boy jumped to his feet and ran down to the ship. Even though his parents were gone, they were still with him. Gamal closed the book and set it down on the side table. It's always nice to visit an old favorite. My father used to read this to me every night before bed. Gamal put his hands on the arms of the chair and stood up. I have a few things to do before lunch. Stay here. Also, I will be locking the door, so no trying to escape again. Gamal quickly walked out the door, locking it behind him, leaving Vaughn in the quiet study by himself. Vaughn sat there in his chair, staring at the fire for a long while. He watched the flames flicker, the logs crack, and the sparks float up. When he thought enough time had passed, Vaughn walked to the door and fiddled with the lock, but it didn't work. Next, he tried to force the door down, but that didn't work either. Vaughn sat back down in his chair, wondering if he even wanted to escape anymore. He would most certainly die if he kept trying. But would he be okay living with Gamal? Vaughn sank even further into the chair, staring at the fire again. He started thinking about the story Gamal had read, and how he saw himself in the boy. He too had everything taken away by something he could not control. He too was sitting alone, hoping that something would change, that someone would come to his rescue, like the captain did for the boy. But who would save him? Vaughn's friends and family must be searching for him. But will they ever find this castle? If they do, will Gamal chase them away or kill them? Vaughn felt even more conflicted. He needed someone on the outside to free him, but didn't want anyone he knew risking their lives for him. Vaughn saw how fast Gamal was. No one he knew would stand a chance against that creature. He closed his eyes to keep from crying, feeling even more alone than before. Suddenly, the door opened and Gamal walked in. "Come, it's time for lunch." Vaughn instinctively followed. Gamal led them back to the luxurious dining room where the food waited for them at the same seats they had for breakfast. Neither said a word during the meal. The only sound was the chewing of their mouths. Vaughn still felt torn about what he wanted to do. He either needed to wholeheartedly try and escape, or he needed to accept his current captivity and live with the consequences. But he didn't like either of those options. There has to be another option, Vaughn thought to himself. But none came during lunch. Before long, Gamal cleared the plates again, and they headed back to the study. Vaughn still wrestled with the thought, there has to be more options. What was he not seeing? Why was no alternate path coming to mind? As they continued walking back, Vaughn was lost in thought. Before he realized, he was back in his chair in the study, sitting next to the fireplace. Gamal sat down, book in hand, but didn't start a conversation. For a long minute they sat in silence, Vaughn still lost in thought. Eventually, Gamal spoke up. "I guess it's time to talk about the story. What were your thoughts on it?" Vaughn shifted uncomfortably in his chair, only half hearing what Gamal had said. It was good." "Okay. But what about it was good? Did you like the setting, the characters, the story? What made the story good for you?" Vaughn stumbled over his words, unsure of what to say, and afraid that saying the wrong thing could bring about his death. "Well, you see," Vaughn sighed loudly, realizing that Gamal would not accept a fake answer. "I honestly really connected to the boy, having everything taken away, and waiting for what I had to come back. It made me think of my current predicament." Gamal silently nodded before picking up the book and flipping through the pages. Vaughn sat there shaking, hoping that his words did not anger Gamal. They sat in silence for a long minute again before Gamal spoke. "So you see yourself as the boy. Everything was taken away from you when I brought you here, and now you are waiting for what you lost to come back." Gamal sounded a little hurt as he spoke. Vaughn's words struck deep, and Gamal started seeing how the kidnapping had affected Vaughn. Gamal continued, "I also feel connected to the boy. Both my parents were killed when I was young, and I was forced to live with extended family I barely knew. Eventually, I found out that this castle was passed down to me from my father. My friends moved here with me, and we had a great time. But over the last few years, they all chose to leave. Twice now, everything I held dear has left me." Gamal paused, holding back tears. "My friends are still alive, but they moved far away. I don't know if I will get to see them again." Vaughn stared at the floor. Suddenly he was feeling sorry for his captor. When he looked into Gamal's eyes, he could see the pain from these losses. Gamal's expression showed how much it weighed on him. His parents' death, his friends leaving, all of it had taken a huge toll on Gamal, And this empty castle, given to him by his father, only reinforced the loss. Gamal struggled to hold back his tears. He couldn't speak, because any word might trigger the tears to flow. Vaughn questioned if he even wanted to flee anymore. Gamal's lonely and has no one to interact with. And being a vampire, he can't simply go out and meet people. Gamal rose. I am sorry, but our conversation is cut short today. Come, I will take you back to your room. Vaughn followed without saying a word. He wanted to escape, but could he leave Gamal alone in this castle? As they walked, Vaughn felt like the halls had gotten longer and the ceilings higher. The whole castle seemed to grow, and it felt even more empty with each step. How did Gamal live in this place by himself for so long? Vaughn walked into his room, but before Gamal closed the door, Gamal said, Thank you for listening to the story and about my past. I will bring you dinner later. Before Vaughn could respond, the door closed and locked. Vaughn stood there in his room, starting to understand the pain Gamal was feeling. I can't leave him here alone, Vaughn said. I have to stay and help him. Vaughn opened the curtain and looked out over the forest. Birds flew by again. He's a prisoner too. I need to free him from his loneliness. Vaughn stared out the window for a long time, unsure how he would rescue Gamal, or how he would defeat loneliness. But it was what he needed to do, and he was prepared to stay until it was accomplished. Thank you for listening to The Voice of Adventure. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to follow wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also keep up with stories and behind-the-scenes content on Instagram at Josiah the Author. Join me as we continue these adventures. See you in the next story.